I'm always looking for better ways to prompt on V0, and I'm not a designer, so I came across this tweet by Damiano Redemagni, and I wanted to try if I could improve my V0 prompts with these principles. So the ones he suggests are the Apple Human Interface Guideline, which is essentially the layout that is designed for all Apple devices. Google Material, you'll recognize this is the best practice used by Google, and the Vignelli Canon, which is about typography and good graphic design. So what I want to do today is try a couple prompts in V0 and see the difference. See if any of these should be used in my future projects and your future projects to make sure that you're using the best possible design without actually having a design background. Let's go to V0, and first I'll just ask it to create a basic app. I'll ask it to create a to-do app, allow the user to input and delete to-dos, organize it by, let's allow it to catch each to-do as critical or into normal, show the today and the following. Let's go ahead and see what V0 does, and here I'm not giving any design guidelines or principles that we recommend to use. Right, we're seeing some SHADCN components. Here we go. Okay, I see an input, I see a categorization, I see a date, and then today in this week. So let's go ahead and test it. Call my mom. That is going to be critical. And let's do that today. And I see there's some nice coloring, which I'm guessing if I do something like do the dishes, which is going to be normal, and we'll say next week Wednesday. That does not pop up. Let's try to see if this bug can be fixed with today. There we go. This looks pretty good. Yeah, there we go. So it's a good clean design. It definitely does the job. In terms of clarity, function, it scores really well. But let's go ahead and try to prompt the same thing, but we're going to ask it to use some of these design guidelines and principles. So the way we'll do this is we will tell V0 to recreate this app. You are now an expert in the Apple Human Interface Guidelines. Please use designing the app. All right, and you're immediately start to see the iOS look and feel with the blue and the icon. And it looks like it became much more minimal, almost to a confusing degree. I would be confused if I saw this on a page. But there we go. Keeping it minimal until more UI is required. So we'll do the same ones. Okay, so that form only pops up when it's needed. Yeah, and then simple colors and a delete function, which is quite nice. I think the spacing could use a little bit of work, but in terms of how clean it is and how clear, I really like this. I think the adding this to a V0 prompt will really elevate your design, and it's also very familiar because of the iOS look and feel. Let's go ahead and try the Google Material Design. Okay, interesting. We're starting to see a different background, and it looks like it's going to be very mobile first. We're looking at this on a larger screen, but at the bottom they put one of these add icons. So I think similar to the Apple version here, look, yeah, okay, we're going to be able to add a new task. You can see there's more white space. They use a card. It's very clear, a little bit almost more like the first one, but definitely elevated in terms of the use of space and making it more intuitive from a mobile perspective. And I think similar to Apple, there will be a little icon on the status, the task, the ability to delete it. So yeah, again, I think a very well-designed user interface. Obviously, when you use this, you would need to work with the spacing to make sure that it works for your different screen sizes and resolutions, make sure that it is responsive, but really an excellent design. Now let's try it with the third one, the Vignelli Canon. So you can see V0 immediately picks up on these inputs and is armed with the knowledge to use these in their designs, which is really cool. Okay, interesting. This one is quite different. You could say it's a bit more bold in your face. It also has some elegance to it. It invites me to go ahead and put in a new task here. And this is not 100% obvious. You can select, but it is obvious that this is an input. Here's the date. I'll add a task, and it's putting it either under today, or I suppose it'll be this week, which is an interesting way to approach this. It looks like there's a little bug there, but that would be on the right. I'm curious if there is a color scheme. Let's give this an important one. It uses gray, so it's using a gray scale, which also has something to it. It's not so obvious in the way that we are used to apps, but it has an elegance to it. It's also extremely clear. So all in all, I think if we go back to the 3, we have the original, which really, when you compare it to the 3 we just did, really does not look that nice. Then we had the Apple one with good spacing, is very clean, very intuitive, and I think the same can be said for the Google Material Design one. And then the Vignelli one, it's something that is a little bit more refined, a little bit more elegant. It won't be for every app, but definitely a good one to have in your pocket. As a final experiment, I actually want to ask V0 to combine all 3. It will have to be forced to pick and choose a bit and see if it can come up with something that combines perhaps the best of all 3. I'm also going to give it a little bit of context on the target market to see if V0 is able to match what a user would expect to which design principles fit best. So let's try something like recreate the app, but use elements of all 3 design principles. The app is targeted towards young, millennial, Gen Z, savvy, entrepreneurs with a very busy schedule. Okay, we see V0 has created a proposal. It looks like it has kept the Google Material Design way to add tasks. There's quite some explanation here, which is really cool, and it will allow for easy iteration. And it even gives per design principle what the influence was. So if we look and go ahead and test what the result is, we do see that there's a little bit of that Vignelli Canon in terms of inputs. Also a little bit of iOS, especially with the color scheme. And it used the Google Material way to add and organize tasks. So this reminds me of the Apple design principles, but it uses a very clean card. The input looks really good. So all in all, I'm very happy with this hybrid approach. So I think in the future, if you want to elevate your V0 UI prompts, I think it's a must to use these kinds of inputs, and I will definitely use this personally in my future project. Thanks, Damiano, for this tweet. It was really helpful, and I hope everyone was able to get something out of this. Thanks a lot.